Shadows, the horror movie heroes, by Clouds. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 7, Education. Kyoka double-checked her phone again, and sure enough, this seemingly abandoned apartment building was exactly where her Maps app was leading her. She huffed in frustrated disappointment. It had been hard enough to find anything on some old hero named Gran Torino, and it had been even harder to find a current address. The internet had been pretty much a total bust, and she'd ended up just calling Recovery Girl and asking if she knew anything. That, of course, had led to an awkward conversation about how, no, All Might hadn't told her, and yes, she was planning on reaching out anyway, but thankfully, instead of being angry at her for eavesdropping, Recovery Girl had just laughed and promised not to give away the surprise. It wasn't supposed to be a surprise. Not really. Kyoka just needed some advice beyond get stronger and punch things, and was hoping this Gran Torino dude would be able to help. Well, the address Recovery Girl had given her was obviously wrong. There was no way that anyone could actually live here, but it left a sour taste in her mouth to just turn around and leave after she'd come all this way. And she sighed and trudged up the steps. She'd knock and wait a few minutes, but when nobody answered, she was just going home. Her knocks echoed through the house, but after a moment, Kyoka heard shuffling from inside. There was actually someone in there? She stuck her hand in her pocket and wrapped it around her pepper spray, just to be safe, even though she really shouldn't be as trigger happy as she was last time. But just in case it wasn't Gran Torino who opened the door. Maybe she should have asked All Might to come with her and introduce them. The door opened and she had to look down to see the owner of the house because he was so old that he'd shrunk, just like Recovery Girl had. He wasn't a lot to look at, just a standard old man with a stubbly beard and a big flannel shirt who probably ate too many TV dinners. But he glared up at her while holding his cane in a way that made it very clear that she was one wrong move away from losing her kneecaps. "Who are you? Are you selling cookies?" Kyoka blinked. "What? No!" "Shame." The man let out a disgruntled noise. "So, why are you here then?" "Well, I'd like to ask you a few questions, actually," Kyoka said, "assuming you're actually the guy I'm looking for." "Oh, yeah?" He gave her an appraising look. "And who is that?" "Gran Torino?" Kyoka smiled when his eyes widened. "That's you, right? Recovery Girl told me I was looking for a crotchety old man." Gran Torino guffawed loudly. "Oh, is that what she told you? Well, it takes one to know one, that's for sure. And why would you be looking for a crotchety old man like me?" "I was hoping you'd be able to offer some more insight about a secret All Might told me," Kyoka said cryptically. "What do you know about One for All?" Izuku and Hitoshi let the psychological thriller they were watching play in the background as they watched clips of last year's sports festival on Izuku's laptop. They each had notebooks open right next to them with the name of the student they were currently analyzing, which at the moment was a second year named Tamaki Amajiki. "His quirk is so interesting," Izuku gushed. "Depending on the combination, he could probably imitate almost any quirk. Does it work on inorganic materials? Like, if he ate a piece of a balloon, could he float? Actually, that wouldn't really work, but maybe if he inhaled helium." "I think it's safe to assume that most of what he manifests is actually food," Hitoshi pointed out. "It's weird finding somebody so shy in the hero course, though. He'll most likely try to stick to a supporting role. But if we can force him into the spotlight, his anxiety is bound to give us the advantage, especially if we can isolate him from those two other kids he always sits with at the end of his fights. They're his support system, so remove them." Izuku grinned, "and he just might crumble. Controlling what he eats is a little harder. especially since we obviously don't want to just starve him or anything, and will only become relevant if it ends up being beneficial to capture him. But I can do some research into some plants or things that won't give him any useful traits. Maybe corn? It doesn't have vines, so it'll be harder to weaponize. Getting hit with corn cobs is still going to hurt, Hitoshi pointed out, but yeah, not really as scary as a blackberry bush wrapping around you or like a bull's horns or something. Yeah. Izuku wrote himself a note for later. I think I've got an okay idea of his quirk now. What about you? Do you have a clear picture of his personality? Hitoshi raised an eyebrow. I've been picking apart people's brains since I was 4, Izuku. You have to know what makes a person tick to make them talk. Izuku grinned and flipped to the next page. Okay then, who's next? How about Mirio Togata? Hitoshi shrugged. Sounds good to me. Gran Torino grabbed Kyoka by the arm and dragged her inside, slamming the door behind her. What did you just say? He was a lot faster than she was expecting and a lot stronger too. Kyoka winced and rubbed at her arm as soon as he let her go. I said I wanted to know more about One for All. Gran Torino just glared at her suspiciously. And how do you even know about it? All Might told me. Kyoka steadily returned his glare. He said he wants me to inherit it, but at the same time, I know there's something he's not telling me. If I'm going to let somebody else give me a quirk, I'd like to know what I'm getting into. Gran Torino frowned and pulled out his phone, but he was no longer staring daggers at her, so that was an improvement. He still gave her a suspicious glance as he held the phone up to his ear, though. Kyoka's eyes widened when All Might answered the phone. Gran Torino, what do I owe the pleasure? I wasn't expecting a call from you today. I have a girl here who says she's your successor, Gran Torino said. Purple hair, more attitude than Nana had at your age. Sound familiar? If she's your successor, why the hell aren't you here with her? Jiro heard a hacking cough on the other end of the phone and grimaced as she realized All Might was spitting up blood again. That was her bad. I didn't actually tell him I was coming. I overheard him talking about you with some guy named Tsukachi and just thought you might be able to help me. Gran Torino blinked at her for a moment as All Might spluttered excuses before he took a deep breath and yelled into the phone, That's even worse, you nincompoop! Were you really so sparse on the details that this girl had to go out of her way to find someone to give her some answers? You know what? She seems like a nice girl, and I'm glad you found somebody with a lick of sense at least. So I'll help you out and answer her questions, okay? But you owe me a full box of taiyaki, got it? Yes, sir. All Might spluttered. Of course. Thank you. Gran Torino hung up the phone as Jiro looked at him in shock. All right, kid. Now what's your name? Kyoka Jiro. Kyoka said, Sir? Gran Torino just rolled his eyes. Just call me Gran. All Might only bothers with that sir stuff because I had to beat some sense into him when he was younger. Now what all did that all-American peacock tell you about One for All? Well, he told me that it's a quirk that gets passed down and that it'll make me stronger. Jiro started, but it's not really the quirk itself that I have questions about. My problem is more like about the training. All Might told me that if I don't have enough muscle mass when I accept it, I'll blow my arms off, which we obviously don't want to have happen, right? But, I get that it's a lot of power, but muscle mass can't be the only way to harness it. Muscle takes a lot of time to build, and showing up to the entrance exam with a new quirk that I've never used before just sounds like a recipe for disaster to me. Gran stared at her with an unreadable expression for a long moment before pulling out his phone again. You told her she couldn't receive it until when? End of chapter.